When I returned home, I found my wife, Emma, setting the table for dinner and taking her by the hand. I told her I had something to talk to her about. She sat down and quietly began to eat. I could see the pain in her eyes. I was in a hurry and didn't know what to say, but I had to let her know what I was thinking. I demand a divorce. I began calmly. There was no emotion or regret in my soul. I had decided to do this a long time ago. At that moment, I expected her to be understanding and humble. She didn't seem to be annoyed by my words, but instead she asked softly,
"Why?"
I dodged the question, which made her angry. My heart already belonged to another. I no longer loved my wife. I just pitied her. My story began in the quiet suburbs of America where I met my future wife, Emma. We were young and full of hope for a bright future. Our love blossomed, and I was sure that she and I would be happy together. When I met Emma, then a stranger, my heart felt like it was ringing with instant attraction. We met at a party, at a dance where the sounds of music sparkled in the air and the lights played on her face like stars reflected in her eyes. I asked her to dance, and it seemed that at that moment time stopped and the world focused only on us. From the first meeting, it was clear that we had a special bond. We spent our days immersed in romance and adventure that only fueled our feelings. We walked the streets, the sleeves of our coats touching, as if thoughts of our future united us in an unbreakable union. Sunsets and dawns greeted our kisses, and in every moment we found beauty and inspiration. And when our wedding day came, the world seemed saturated with magic and love. In a line of white roses, we walked under the archway, symbolizing our eternal attachment to each other. The hugs and kisses of our family and friends, filled with joy and happiness, became the melody of our new beginning. After the wedding, our lives were filled with joy and warmed by love. We created our own little cozy world where every day was filled with laughter, tenderness, and understanding. We spent time walking hand in hand through the parks, listening to the chirping of birds and breathing the scents of blooming flowers. Every morning I would carry her in my arms to the kitchen, and then she would make us a wonderful breakfast. She really didn't like waking up in the morning, so I had to be clever and use that gesture to wake her up. We shared dreams and plans for the future, striving to make it bright and beautiful. Our evenings were filled with gentle touches and deep conversations that allowed us to better understand and love each other. Every month on the date we met, I gave her peonies. She loves these flowers, and I tried to be attentive to her. We learned to be a support and a pillar in difficult moments, and our embrace became a refuge from life's troubles. We danced together in our living room, to the sound of soft music, as if each step was part of our symphony of love together. These moments of our life together were little bits of happiness that filled our hearts and strengthened our bond. We understood that together we could overcome any difficulties, and that our love only grew stronger with each passing day. But alas, it didn't last as long as we would have liked. After my son was born, Emma forgot about me. She stopped taking care of herself. You could rarely see a smile on her face. She lost herself and completely immersed herself in family life and motherhood. Maybe she had postpartum depression, I don't know. I don't really know about that. But the birth of her son put a lot of distance between us. I always tried to support her, but then not myself began to miss the attention and affection from my wife. We stopped communicating on a deep level and stopped listening to each other. Often our conversations boiled down to day business and problems. Instead of supporting and inspiring each other, we fell into a routine and monotony. I tried more and more to stay late at work. I did not want to come home. Intimacy between us also became practically non-existent. We became strangers to each other. The sense of passion and infatuation that had been our compass at the beginning of our marriage began to fade. I felt like I was losing myself in this marriage. My dreams and ambitions were stifled, and I began to feel that my life was not developing the way I wanted it to. I became disillusioned with my own choices and perplexed as to why I could not find the happiness in marriage that had once seemed so promised. Every time I looked at Emma, I saw only a duty partner and mother to my son. We got lost in our role as parents and forgot that we were also husband and wife in need of love, attention, and passion. My decision to divorce was a last resort, an attempt to find myself and find the happiness I had long lost. I felt that my love for Emma had dried up, and nothing could bring us back to the way we used to be. When I returned from work the day after my divorce application, I found Emma writing something at her desk. I didn't have dinner. I just lay down and fell asleep very quickly as I was tired after an exciting day with another woman. In the morning, Emma presented her divorce terms. She didn't want anything from me but asked for a month's reprieve before the divorce. She asked that this month we try our best to live as normal a life as possible. She gave very simple reasons. Our son had exams in a month, and she did not want to disrupt his preparation with our divorce proceeding. I understood my wife's intentions perfectly not to create a stressful environment in his life, But her next demand was this.
I want you to remember our relationship after the wedding. How you carried me in your arms in the morning to the kitchen to make you breakfast. How you gave me peonies every 20th of the month, the date we met. Give me the same emotions you had before.
It's very strange to me, especially now that we're talking about an imminent divorce. But since this is your last wish before the divorce, I don't mind. At the time of this request, I didn't understand why we needed to continue this farcical comedy of marriage, but I agreed because I could see that it was very important to her. In fact, it seemed to me that Emma was going crazy, or perhaps she was hoping that we would restore our marriage. I didn't have a problem meeting her demands, but in my heart I felt uncomfortable trying to court my own wife. We had become such strangers that I felt very uncomfortable pretending that I was doing all this from the heart. In the early days, I didn't pay much attention to our relationship. We led a normal life trying to support our son during his exams. So when I carried her on the first day, we seemed clumsy. I wasn't in the same shape as I used to be. As I picked her up in my arms and carried her toward the kitchen, I noticed a smirk on her face, as if she understood that this was just our joint arrangement, but she didn't resist. Our son Mike noticed me carrying Emma in my arms and laughed.
Wow, look at that. Daddy's carrying Mommy in his arms. Daddy, are you pumped up, or doesn't Mommy want to make you breakfast?
Yeah, you're right, son. Mom does sleep a lot. That's why she doesn't want to make us breakfast. We all laughed and fooled around. It's been a long time since there was laughter and joy in the house. Still, my feelings for Emma were spent, though there was a smile on my face. I was actually indifferent and cold inside. Carrying Emma in my arms had become a habit in our family. My son was now taking the initiative himself, coming up to me every morning and telling me it was time to wake up his mother and carry her into the kitchen. He was very excited about our bonding with Emma, even though it was a game. He didn't suspect a thing. Our son Mike was always our source of joy and pride. He grew up surrounded by our love and care, but of course he couldn't help but notice our problems and tensions in our marriage. He saw that we were no longer as close as we used to be and felt that something was wrong. We started spending more time together as a family. Mike saw me opening up to Emma, sharing my thoughts and emotions. He saw us smiling and laughing together as if recapturing lost moments of happiness. Mike saw us going on dates and trying to do something special for each other. He noticed how our conversations became deeper and more meaningful. There was a glimmer of hope and love in our eyes that had long since been extinguished. Mike sensed that something was changing for the better. But that was only partly true. I was still keeping my promise to my wife. I never stopped seeing my mistress. I realize now that I was a complete bastard. I'm sorry I did what I did in those days. If I had a chance to change things, I would change everything, but now it's too late. In those days when things started to fade with Emma, Natalie came into my life. She was energetic, attractive, and full of passion. In our encounters, I found the spark that was once present in our marriage. Natalie gave me new emotions and excitement that I had lost so much of. Natalie became my refuge from the routine and frustration I was experiencing in my marriage. I found in her what I couldn't find in my relationship with Emma. So I decided to make a change and started dating Natalie. Natalie didn't want to be in mistress status. She is a proud, self-sufficient woman who is already ready to have a family and children. So after our conversations together, I saw no point in continuing to live with my wife. Natalie filled my life with real emotions and new experiences. She made me feel like I was on top of my game. I felt like a real man, a desirable man. These feelings seemed impossible with Emma. Emma was uninteresting and boring in my eyes. It was as if we had never had feelings. They had been long forgotten and shelved. So I was quite resolute when I proposed the divorce to Emma. It happened in the same breath, without a drop of regret or sadness inside me. Natalie was glad that I had asked her to marry me. I promised her that I would soon divorce her and we would go on vacation and get married afterwards. I couldn't imagine my life any other way. I had everything firmly decided. But each time I kept my promise to my wife, the memories and feelings I'd had 17 years before ignited in me a little bit. Her hands weren't so cold. Her gaze wasn't empty at all. Her hair soft and silky. Everything became alive and real. And why hadn't I ever noticed her easy walk? The dimples on her cheeks that she got when she laughed. It wasn't the same anymore. I began to doubt my decision. But there was no going back. I promised Natalie. I couldn't do otherwise. I couldn't risk it. What if Emma was also pretending and didn't love me? Maybe she's trying so hard for her son. She didn't used to be like this. Gentle and feminine. Something was definitely wrong, and everything inside me turned upside down. To solve everything once and for all, I decided to tell Emma about my cheating. I was curious to see what she would tell me and what would happen after we talked. I got home early from work. Natalie told me I was having difficulties at work and was in the mood to talk. I came home and saw Emma watching a movie, her favorite melodramas. I ate dinner and walked over to her. Emma, have you ever wondered why I haven't been home a lot lately?
Why did you start this conversation? Do you want my opinion, or is your conscience getting the better of you?
Why haven't you ever talked to me about it?
Would it have made a difference? There's no point in having this conversation anymore. You made up your mind a long time ago, and I'm glad it happened the way it did. I'm glad you're finally going to find your happiness.
And what about you? What are you going to do?
Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Just please don't forget about your son.
How can I forget about him? It's understood we'll support him all our lives.
Thank you.
This conversation didn't make anything clear to me. She knew about my having a mistress and didn't say anything about it. Why? There were a lot of questions, but she didn't want to answer me. In the end, I felt lousy with myself. I took the keys to the house and the money and went to the store to get a drink. I don't remember where I'd walked that night, but I couldn't get my thoughts together. I didn't want to leave Emmy. I felt sick at the thought of her not being there for me. She was still my Emmy. It was all my fault. I didn't pay enough attention to her. I kept thinking she was the problem. But I was such a fool. It was all my fault. If only I'd come home from work with a bouquet of flowers, or I would have helped her at home, or babysat her son, so she could get cleaned up. Just once I would have told her how beautiful and gentle and sweet she was. I always complimented Natalie, but I was stingy with words from my wife. I didn't do anything for my wife, but I expected love and attention from her. I justified my cheating by saying it was my wife's fault. How could I have lost Emmy like that? How could I have lost Emmy like that? How could I forget about my own wife? That night, I knew I had to get Emmy back at any cost. It was the last day of the month. I came home tattered, but with a bouquet of peonies and a ring. I wanted to propose to Emma again. I was 100% sure I would get her back, no matter what it cost me. 10 years, 20, even 100, I was ready to pursue her and ask for forgiveness. In a note to the bouquet, I wrote that I was ready to wake her up every morning and carry her in my arms. Before I went to Emma's, I went to Natalie's to break up with her and explain everything to her. She opened the door, was very happy to see me, and then I announced my intentions. She got very angry, slapped me in the face, said everything she thought about me, and closed the door. There was no going back, but I knew I was doing the right thing. And so, I walked up to the house with a wide smile and the hope that she would forgive me. I didn't stop for a second. I stumbled, but I ran up the stairs. I wanted, as soon as possible, to get it all back and do what I should have done all those years ago. As I flew up the stairs, I found my wife in bed, dead. Turns out Emmy had been battling a terminal illness for months, and I'd been so busy with Natalie that I hadn't even noticed. She knew she had days and minutes left, so to the end, she tried to be the perfect and exemplary family for our son. In that moment, I lost someone I wasn't close to. I completely lost myself and my soul that day. She was everything to me, but I did everything I could to lose her. The little things in family relationships are what build our family brick by brick, fills every crack and void. Please don't forget this. It's really important.